Alright everyone, throughout the last year, most of the problems that I've ever had with something Trump did were fairly minor, like the CIA black sites thing, which I don't think he ended up even doing. He suggested, well, maybe we should reopen some of those, and I opposed it at the time. Striking Syria before on their air base, I opposed it in principle, even though, I mean, it's not really a big problem, nothing really came of it, but I still, out of principle, I have to oppose such a maneuver because it's pointless. Because I don't believe that Assad has ever deployed chemical weapons. No, I think the FSA has deployed it. I think they've gotten a hold of some of his WMD stockpiles and that they're the only ones dumb enough to do so, because I look at it, I say, would Assad really have a reason to gas his own civilians? No, I think that would be really, really dumb. You'd have to render him to the one-dimensional to see a scenario in which it would behoove him to do so. Because, I mean, he's already making do with standard munitions, he's already beating the FSA even though we're funding and arming them, which Obama never should have done, so who cares? Tillerson now has come out and said, well, our engagement within Syria will be open-ended, and by the way, we still insist that we must work on a plan for Assad to eventually depart. He needs to be out of power. So in other words, you're going to continue the same failed policies of the Obama administration. Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea, and I'm hoping beyond hope that this was Tillerson saying something dumb for A/B testing. Trump wants to see how the public reacts, and that if we simply say it's a bad idea, he'll come out and say, well, you know, I disagree with Rex on this one. Much respect to him, but no, I don't think it will be open-ended. You know, we're going to have to eventually depart the area because things are stabilizing. Look. Under Obama, with our continued involvement there, the war dragged on, created wave after wave of refugees as a big selling point for the Trump campaign, by the way, reforming that situation. Refugee wave after refugee wave, lots and lots of migrants pretending to be refugees pouring into Europe and the US, crime, terrorism, every attendant problem possible. Syria looking like a wasteland, entire cities virtually depopulated, looking like props from a Fallout game. That's basically the result of U.S. foreign policy in Syria. Obama was arming militants. He was arming Islamo-fascists. He armed terrorist groups. He should have been impeached for this. Trump has rescinded that, but now he wants to, apparently, if Rex speaks for Trump on this issue, and I hope he doesn't, he wants to continue fighting basically a covert war, Obama style, like Obama did in Yemen. Just drones and planes. No on the ground. No physical invasion. We're just going to constantly bombard Assad's forces accidentally anytime we can, under the guise of fighting ISIS. Look, ISIS has been crippled in Syria. Assad is on the ground already there with his troops from Syria itself. He's capable of dealing with ISIS in an association with the Iranians. Now, the U.S. government may hate Iran all it wants. I think that it's preferable for that to happen than for one of the following possibilities. Number one, U.S. ousts Assad, instability accrues, and ISIS begins growing again. I think that's probably a bad scenario. Number two, Assad staves that off by partnering more closely with Iran and says, okay, you can put like troops and missile systems and everything here in Syria. Don't you think that might perturb some other countries in the region? Like, oh, I don't know. I think that Turkey might get really, really upset. I think that Israel might get really upset, and they have nuclear weapons. I think Egypt probably wouldn't like that either. I think the Saudis would probably be gearing up for open warfare. I think that could inflame the region. Then there's the worst possibility, which is that Assad, bypasses Iran entirely and says, hey, big buddy Russia, the U.S. is trying to kill me off, and, I'm just gaining stability here. Things are getting better, but I need your help. Put some troops in Syria. Russia says, okay, we'll put like 10,000 dudes, scatter them around. And then, by the way, it'll be a diplomatic nightmare for the U.S. if they accidentally hit one of them. Wouldn't that be a friggin' problem? Don't you think that could lead to a Cuban Missile Crisis scenario? Look, one of the main reasons I voted against Hillary Clinton was her dick-wagging about Syria. Syria and Iran, of course. In the past, she had alluded to being willing to go to war with Iran, aka start a nuclear war with Russia. Because Iran is technically speaking, their most powerful actual ally. China doesn't really count. They're their own pole of power at this point. Maybe not 10 years ago, they would still be standing with the Russians. Now they're more independent. In fact, they're almost the senior partner with everything except their nuclear stockpile. Which, by the way, eventually we're going to end up going, if we keep making the Cold War more cold, at some point, who's going to begin nuclear testing again? Is India or Pakistan, are they going to start again? Is France going to say, our older weapons may not cut it anymore. Maybe we need to to, you know, go back to our island possessions for a weekend? Are the Russians going to say, you know, we're being threatened too often, we're going to fully modernize everything? Is China going to say, okay, we need 1,000 more missiles. We need 1,000 more megatons of blast in our arsenal to make sure that nobody fucks with us over the Spratly Islands. You have a fucking dangerous world, dude. This is not going to help. It's not going to solve anything. Look, ISIS has been degraded severely in the wake of Obama leaving, mainly because Trump said, hey, we're not going to arm the FSA. Assad is going to deal with them. He wipes the floor with the FSA, and then he begins fixating on ISIS. Simple as that. The FSA has virtually disappeared. Most of their remaining members probably became ISIS members by now because they're similar. Their ideology is the same, except ISIS won a caliphate with a worldwide presence. The FSA was just within Syria. It was a nationalistic Islamo-fascist guerrilla movement. That's the only difference between the two. Otherwise, other than that, and the fact that ISIS was more ready to chew somebody's heart out for the cameras and was better at propaganda, there's really no difference between the two. And by the way, Assad still runs a sovereign state. The fact that the U.S. unilaterally declares that it's unacceptable for him to be there doesn't mean he's not still the leader of a sovereign state. Look, possession is 9/10 of the law. Assad now possesses most of Syria again. ISIS still holds some areas, and I believe the Kurdish militias do too. By the way, what if Assad says buddies with Turkey and says, okay, we've had our differences, but now we've got the same threat. We got these Kurds running around partnering with the U.S. Don't you think it would be dangerous to nudge them in the same direction, get them into a partnership, even maybe cross-siding with Iran? You know, Sunni Turkey siding with the Shia world in order to beat up on the Kurds that the U.S. government keeps trying to prop up? Don't you think that would be a nightmare? And we would lose, by the way, the Kurdish militias there. They can't stand against the Turkish military, the Iranian military, and Assad at the same time. They'd get their asses handed to them. They would be completely destroyed. There wouldn't be a single person left. They could, by the way, they could commit genocide in the region, and because Iran's involved, nobody else is going to get involved. What's the U.S. supposed to do? Say, okay, Russia, stand aside. We're going to bomb one of your major allies. Yes, this sounds like a great idea. I think it would go off without a hitch. You would at least see some sort of regional war. Of course you would at that point. So it's a nightmare scenario. We should not continue to be involved in the Middle East, other than possessions that are already there with the will of the government. It's like we have bases in Iraq. The Iraqi government doesn't care if they're there. We should maintain them. We have a presence in Israel. We have a presence in Jordan. We have a presence in Egypt. We have presences in some of these countries. We have bases in Turkey. It's fine to manage those as we have them now. It is a terrible idea to open up what essentially is a new front by running around Syria for an extended period, and we don't even have an assurance of an exit date. He's saying, well, it's open-ended. We're just going to stay there for a while. How long, Rex? 10 years? Is it going to be like Afghanistan? Is there going to come a point 20, 30 years from now where most of my life has been spent where we're technically at war in Syria too? You know, we're already technically speaking, we're bombing things. We're at war in Yemen. We're at war in Afghanistan. We're at war in Iraq. We're technically at war in Libya. We're at war in Korea. We have been since the 1950s. It's a lot of wars. Now, you don't have to declare war openly. If you're dropping bombs in a country and the country doesn't want you doing that, you are at war in that country. The government may not be willing to stand up for you. It may be like, like the French government in World War II there as it capitulated to a foreign power and tried its best to get along with things. But it doesn't mean anything. It's still war. So it's totally moronic. I totally oppose Tillerson on this token. I hope that Trump is doing A/B testing and that he backs off on it. If not, it would be a strong strike against Trump in my estimation, a very strong one. I would not be happy with a continued presence. If you're saying, yes, there's a certain time in which we're probably withdrawing, or we're not going to do really military stuff, we're going to coordinate, do reconnaissances, that's fine. I don't care if you help other people in the region attack ISIS targets. And if you're solely going after ISIS, again, that's fine too. The problem is, you're also talking about wanting to go after Assad. That's suicidal, dude. It's a terrible idea. So I oppose it entirely. So for people who say, oh, he sucks Trump's dick, no, this is a fairly high-grade mistake on the part of his administration if indeed this becomes Trump's official policy. But I want to hear it from Trump himself. I don't want to just hear from Rex Tillerson. I want to hear Trump come out and weigh in. Somebody needs, if the media has any sense at all, they'll ask him that question that's actually valid and stop fixating on fucking Haiti or how Trump's heart is doing. Fuck that. That's bullshit. Who cares if Trump has high blood calcium levels? Who cares if Trump said something about Haiti? That doesn't matter. It's not going to affect your lives. You know what will affect them is a continued presence in Syria that brings us to the brink of a world war, potentially. That's what I see as a problem. Ask him that question. You know, have a little bit of credibility. Have some shred of honesty left. I wouldn't put it past them not to, though. That's about all. Peace out.